3:04 a.m. The steel helmet hanging on the wooden peg trembled. Clang, clang, clang. 3 beats. Cold, like a clock counting down. The radio, silent for a week, suddenly came alive. A green light blinked, throwing the shadow of my shaking hand across the trench wall. The needle jerked sideways, scraping as if it might snap. Then a voice broke through. Hoarse, distorted. Half man, half machine. It wears our uniform, but it does not breathe. Silence. Only the knocking remained, steady in the dark. The helmet tilted upward, not by wind, not by touch, but as if unseen eyes were staring down. Cold mud swallowed our ankles. It seeped straight into bone. One man coughed, thin blood soaking the sleeve of his grey coat. I clenched my fist, nails cutting skin until blood welled. No one noticed. Beside me, a soldier trembled. He clutched a crumpled photo to his chest, faded faces I couldn't make out. His lips shaped a name, but no sound escaped. The air thickened, rotting rat mixed with damp gunpowder, burning the lungs. From inside the wet sandbags came a slow, steady gnawing. It sounded too much like someone breathing, right next to my ear. No one slept. Each knock struck like the tick of an invisible clock, quietly counting something closer. We waited for daylight, but the night dragged on and on. When the first light finally reached the trench, they called our names. A mission was waiting. We thought we had survived one night. In truth, the night had only begun. They chose us for one simple reason. If you don't come back, no one will care. Old or young, it made no difference here. We were just meat thrown into the machine. One gone, another filled the gap. 5 men, a sergeant, old, stubborn. His lungs rotted from gas. Each cough brought up black blood. It stained his sleeve, yet his eyes stayed hard, rust-colored steel. His steps heavy, but never slowing. A radio operator. Before switching on, he always tapped the metal case 3 times. A ritual to chase bad luck. But tonight, before his hand touched it, there were 4 knocks. The 4th, hollow and cold, the whole group froze. He shook the most. 2 young scouts. One kept a soft mint candy in his mouth, sweet mixed with mud and gunpowder. He chewed slow, holding onto a scrap of home. The other carried a small wooden charm, worn smooth by endless rubbing. Every step, his thumb found it, begging someone still listened. And me, no charm, no ritual, just muddy hands, clenched tight so they wouldn't shake. We stepped out of the trench. Rotten planks cracked underfoot. Mud sucked at our boots. Rats swam through the drainage ditch, tails slicing red ripples in the water. The stink of gunpowder and rusted iron pressed into our throats. A flare burst in the distance. White light swept across the field, revealing bodies that had been standing for days. One snagged on barbed wire, its head tilted at an impossible angle, as if still listening. Eye sockets hollow, teeth frozen in a hard grin. A severed arm waved in the wind, as if signaling us forward. One scout slipped. Mud dragged him waist deep. We hauled him out, his face pale. He bit half his candy, but the mint was drowned in the taste of filthy water. He swallowed hard, said nothing more. We crossed the collapsed road. Out of the dark, an old woman appeared. Clothes caked in mud, hair hanging over her face. She coughed until red-brown spit hit the ground. Her voice rasped, 2 layers at once. One human, one not. Last night, I saw shadows walking past the old factory. By morning, there were no footprints. No one answered. The radio man only hunched his shoulders, gripping his rifle tight. Our mission, Trench 11A. Search for mines. Check the signal at 3 or 4. No reinforcements, no reliable maps. Just one order. Go in, look, come back if you can. We reached the mouth of the bunker. The broken chimney of the factory stretched long across the ground, a finger pointing down into the earth. One scout froze. He pulled a crumpled photo from his chest pocket. Mud smeared the corners. The cloth still smelled of cheap soap, washed in haste before the march. His hand shook as he traced the faded face in the picture. Then he shoved it back quickly, as if afraid someone might see. Cold air breathed out of the entrance. Damp. Mold. A single drop fell. The sound echoed. Too long. As if the tunnel ran deeper than any map. As if it had no bottom. As if it was waiting, and still we stepped down. This entrance wasn't on any map. Rotten beams pushed up through wet earth, warped, as if dug up and buried again and again. Black-green moss streaked down the frame. Mud heavy, dripping. Drag marks stretched outward, as if something massive had crawled out of the dark. We scraped away more dirt. A broken sign appeared. Red letters smeared. Dried like blood. Red zone. Do not come back. Not do not enter, but do not come back. The wood was carved over and over. Some cuts faded silver, some fresh and sharp. Many hands. Many generations, all leaving the same warning. Along the edge, a streak of dried blood. Beside it, a broken fingernail jammed deep into the grain, shining like glass. The scout's flashlight shook. The beam swept the dirt wall. We saw a shadow move there, but none of us had moved. A drop of water fell. Its echo stretched too long. Not like water, more like a church bell in ruins. Cold, endless, hollow. I coughed. Bitter disinfectant still stung my throat, mixed with the taste of rust and old blood. The sergeant bent down. His sleeve smeared across the word "don't." The silence pressed in. Then, the radio clicked alive. A green light flared once. The needle spun, jerking. Then backwards, static screamed, broken, layered. And inside that chaos, clear as breath against the back of our necks, we heard it. Breathing. A hoarse voice broke through, half human, half machine. Go down there, and you will not come back. The radio cut dead. Only the cold wind poured out of the tunnel. Cold enough to make you think what lay beneath wasn't earth at all. And still, we knew we had to step inside. No one touched the radio. But it switched on. A red light blinked, throwing dim streaks across our faces. The needle quivered like it might snap. Static shrieked. The scout reached for it. A spark burst. He yanked his hand back. A nail split. Blood ran between his fingers. The stink of burned flesh mixed with wet mud, choking. White noise flooded in. It tangled with the wind at the tunnel mouth. Barbed wire rattled outside, like unseen hands dragging along each strand. Crows called, far and thin. Then creak, wooden wheels on cobbles, as if a cart from another century rolled into this night. A man's voice broke through, hoarse, dry, as if the earth itself spoke from lungs already rotted. Alpha 3, year 1915, coordinates E9. Fosho Ridge. Resupply failed. The sound cracked, then reversed. Gunfire, dogs barking, boots pounding. All of it folded into static, like war memories being pulled back, warped, looped. The clock hand jumped. 3:04. The green light flared. The voice slowed, cold, mechanical. Casualty list 1, 2. The first name called was mine. My chest clenched tight. My pulse in my neck fell out of rhythm with the voice. Sharp pain, like someone squeezing my heart, pulling each beat out one by one. My breath spilled from my lungs. Too long, too heavy. A soldier whispered. His lips trembled, but his words matched the radio perfectly, as if he had been synchronized. And worse, his echo came before his mouth moved. I heard it from the other side of the wire. I did not dare turn around. The voice kept reading, each name a half-beat late, like a copy learning to call us, like a shadow learning to speak our language. No one spoke. Only the clock's needle trembled, ticking down to whatever was coming closer. And then Beck turned, a sudden step into a side tunnel. His flashlight flared once, then died. 1 minute, 2, no return. We rushed after him. Mud slid under our boots. The walls damp, dripping. Beck's pack lay across the passage, strapped on. His helmet face down, still warm to the touch. His rifle half buried in mud, not even loaded. A name tag snapped in half. Beck, the edge stained with blood. Beside it, a long drag mark, as if someone had been pulled away. The ground still warm. The stench of mud and rusted iron thick, but laced with something else. Cigarette smoke, the kind Beck always lit on night watch, still hanging in the air. I bent down. In a shallow pool floated a broken whistle. The mouthpiece dented, teeth marks deep. Beck used to bite it, waiting for his shift to end. I swallowed hard. Beck, I whispered. No reply. A scout shouted louder, Beck! The echo cracked down the tunnel. Once, twice, 3 times. Then it broke apart. Silence swallowed everything. I gripped my rifle, nails cut skin, Blood welled. A soldier's breath quickened, ragged, clinging to the sound of his own heartbeat to prove he was still alive. I called again. This time, an answer came. My voice, rising from deep in the dark. The last syllable half a beat late. Hollow, empty, as if pushed through lungs with no air. As if some mouth down there was learning to speak in my voice. One scout stumbled back, rifle shaking. The beam of his light swept across wet earth. A shadow shifted on the wall, but none of us had moved. Far above, past the barbed wire, a dry rattling broke out. Not laughter, not animal, something between, long, harsh. It crawled across our scalps like cold fingers. No orders were given. We all killed our lights, leaving only one faint glow, and stepped deeper into the tunnel Beck had taken. No one dared call his name again. A figure staggered at the end of the tunnel. Its shadow stretched long across the wet walls, but twisted wrong. The shoulders in the shadow turned opposite the real body. Feet dragged, grinding like bone against stone. We held our breath. A scout swallowed hard, voice shaking. That shape, it looks like Beck. The figure stopped, lifted its head. Our beam caught it, eyes wide, empty. Chest jerking, out of rhythm. Breath rattling, broken, mechanical. Its mouth opened. Only a strangled hiss poured out, torn and long. A gunshot cracked. No one knew from where. Then all of us fired at once. Bullets thundered down the tunnel. But the echoes came first. Half a beat before the triggers. Shots and echoes, out of sync. The body collapsed, then braced on its arms, staggering upright again. A flare burst, red light swept across. The face came clear. It was Beck, but Beck broken. Skin stitched with black thread, dragging half his face sideways. His head twisted past the point of the joint, still moving. Eyes cloudy, hollow. His chest heaving on the wrong beat of a human heart. For one instant, the smell hit me. Beck's cigarettes, sweet, harsh, familiar. I reached into my pocket. The pack was still there, but inside, only wet mud. The scent vanished, leaving nothing but blood and cold earth. No one fired again. We froze. The radio man dropped to his knees, shoulders shaking. His fingers clutched a bent antenna, not from fear, but because it was his hand that had pulled the trigger. The red light swept once more and showed Beck on his knees, shaking, as if trying to hold on to something human, even while his body twisted away. His mouth shaped my name, but no sound came. Instead, the voice rose from the radio, lying in the dirt, late by half a beat, hoarse, cold. Beck is no more. We followed the map. Left turn at branch E3. Wind howled through a broken air shaft. A metallic trumpet dragged along in the dark. Mud dried beneath our boots, then turned wet again, as if it had never dried at all. Along the tunnel walls, handprints, dried blood, even, repeated, as though placed there deliberately. A bend, a pool of murky water. I froze. The back of my neck went cold. This place we had already passed. I pulled the crumpled map from my pocket. Paper yellowed, corners torn. I ripped off a piece. The fragment dropped into the mud. But in my hand, the map was whole again. The tear sealed shut. Old ink faded. New lines emerged, still wet, smudging my fingertips, cold as damp skin. A message surfaced. If you hear 3 knocks, do not answer. I held my breath. The handwriting stabbed through me. It was mine. The same script from a letter I never sent. A letter I wrote in the night, blessing the child yet to be born. I had already chosen a name, as if I knew I would not be there. Blood welled from my fingertip. It bled across the fresh ink, line for line. Behind me, a scout laughed. Dry, twisted, hollow, like tapping a bottle cap, then doubled, tripled, many voices joining. We've always been here, haven't we? He said. His voice cracked. The question hung in the dark. No one answered. Above, a flare burst. White light rained down, exactly as before. Same place, same color. Not a detail changed. I folded the map, hands trembling, ink bled along the edge, dripping like thin blood. Inside my skull, the clock ticked offbeat. We were here. We will always be here. My veins burned hot, pulse clamped from the outside. I stumbled back, but the wall behind me bore the mark of my hand. Bright, red, wet, as if blood had just spilled. Behind us, the tunnel breathed. Beat after beat, each pull dragging us deeper. No one spoke, no one touched the other. We only walked on, step after step, following the loop. 4 of us left. The knocking quickened. Clods of earth shook loose from the ceiling. Somewhere deeper, something crawled through the soil. Closer, closer. The sergeant stood beneath the dying flare, his face carved with exhaustion, not fear. The look of a man who had lived this moment too many times. He slipped off his wedding ring, set it in my palm, light, fragile, as if it might shatter. Soot smeared his fingers. A scar cut across the back of his trembling hand, yet his grip held steady. He looked at me for a long time, whispered, voice hoarse and brittle, like ash ground between teeth. Give it to her. Tell her I kept my promise. We tried to hold him back. I caught his arm. A scout gripped his shoulder, but he shoved us away. Go. Someone has to block this way, or none of you will make it out. He turned, struck a match. The flame burst close to his face, etching every cracked wrinkle in red. We stumbled back, then we ran, feet like stone, but still running. Each step tore at our chests. None of us looked back, afraid not just of what we'd see, but of what we already knew was there. The stench of sulfur filled the tunnel. Then a heavy thud, light erupted, blinding white. It swallowed the passage whole. The blast flung us forward. Pain split our ribs. Ears rang, like a church bell shattering. Nothing left but the sound of my heart beating off tempo. Ash fell like rain, clung to our lashes, heavy. I scraped my eyes raw. For an instant, I saw the wedding ring spin across the wooden floor. Clink. 3 times, then vanish into smoke, We scrambled up, ran. Shoulders raked the walls, burning. Staggered, still running, never looking back. Out of the tunnel mouth, silence thick as tar. Ash filled our lungs, each breath cut like shards of glass. And then, from far below, a voice rose, offbeat, broken. "Don't let it take my voice." The sound chewed every word, heavy, like earth pressing down on a buried throat. Not quite his voice, not anyone's. "Don't let it take my voice." The ring inside, still warm, as if some part of him refused to leave. I woke up outside the trench. Thin mist lay over the mud. It flashed silver, cold as a blade. Someone grabbed my hand, pulled me up from the pit. Their hands were rough. They trembled, like they'd just hauled a corpse. Rescue men stood around, coats caked with mud. They didn't look at me. They looked through me, as if something else stood on top of me. One bent down, asked my name. I answered. They were silent. So silent, I couldn't tell if they didn't understand, or if they pretended not to. Then a dry voice, like cracking earth, said, "This man was posted as dead 3 days ago." I looked at my hands. Mud and dried blood crusted over, nails black and split. I clawed at my skin until it opened. The tips of my fingers bled, slick with mud. A medic stepped back. Hand went to his rifle, then froze. His eyes didn't look at me. They looked past me, as if seeing someone standing right behind. He whispered, thin as mist, You look exactly like the man I buried yesterday." Far off, the church bell tolled. A plain, lonely peal, like a bell tolling for no one. Endless, heavy. The moans of the wounded drifted from the crater. A groan, distant, so familiar it made memory crack. I strained to listen. No one else heard it. But inside my head, there was an echo. My own voice, half a beat late, as if it rose out of a cave beneath the earth. Wind moved through, the smell of wet cloth, the tang of rust, and then, briefly, Beck's cigarette smoke, so human, so small, then gone. They lifted me onto a stretcher. No words of comfort, their steps quick and tight. Eyes fixed on the empty space behind us. The distance between them and me thickened, like glass. Night fell, heavy. From far off, the knocking came again. 3 firm beats. 304. I clenched my hand tight. A cracked finger bled. But my hand still tapped, perfect to the rhythm. A scrap of thought scratched across my skull, like a needle on a record. We were here, and we will be here still. The knocking paused. Above the trench, the helmet on the peg shivered. Clang, clang, clang. One of the rescue men stepped back, his eyes empty, as if he had understood something impossible. They wheeled the stretcher away, down a different road, away from that place. No words, just hurried steps. I lay still, only the sound of their boots, thudding, swaying with each step, boots that dragged mud, boots that carried dried blood, and in my head, Only a hollow colder than bone, like the name they called, was no longer mine. Behind us, in the mist, the knocking sounded one last time. Short, close, then fading, and a voice, maybe mine, maybe not, whispered inside my head, "We do not go anywhere." Echoes followed me, through the mist, through the dark. When my eyes opened, sound turned into something else. Tick, tick, tick. The red light blinked. The needle spun. I sat in a small, cramped room. A tape recorder in front of me. They made me tell it all. I tried to keep my voice steady, but when the tape played back, it was my voice. Only wrong. The last syllable dragged long, like the needle snagged on a deep scratch. Beck stretched out wrong. Come back arrived half a beat late. Midway through the tape, there was a tear. A dry, cracking whisper pressed against the mic. "Don't let it take my voice." I never said that. But the sergeant did, right before he vanished into white light. Now 2 layers of sound were fused. They would not separate. When I rewound the tape, I heard footsteps. Clear. Moving closer to the mic. But there was no one else in the room with me. That night, I dreamed of Beck. No blood, no black stitches. Just a young man leaning on a sandbag, a cigarette glowing between his fingers, smoke drawing pale circles across a hometown sky. He talked about fresh baked bread, about the day he'd come home. In the dream, he was more alive than anyone left here. The tape ended with 3 knocks. Dry, even, perfectly on time. I still hear them, every night. I don't know if they come from the radio or from the bones in my chest. The tape stopped. Silence. On the tabletop, 3 round, wet mud prints had appeared. Fresh, dark, wet. Beside them, an old steel helmet lay face up. It rocked a little. Clang, clang, clang. 3 beats, always the same. They sent 5 men in. Only 1 came back. But the knocking never stopped. And no one could be sure he was still human.